In today's video, we're going to be painting up a giant cobra from Reaper Miniatures. Okay, so what I've done is I've already cleaned up the miniature here, and I've placed it onto this base, as you can see here, with just some rocks I've gotten out from the garden and the driveway. I've just placed a bit of PVA glue on there, and I'm just grabbing the sand that I usually use for doing the bases, which I've just grabbed from the driveway and sift it down just a little bit. And we want to do this for the nice desert base that I'm going to be doing for this miniature. Since this miniature is a really simple thing to paint up and going to be quite easy, I'm going to be spending a lot more time focusing on a base and giving it sort of a desert environment to really make it pop out and stick out on. Okay, so once all that glue is dried, I've just primed up the model, as you can see here, just in some white. And we're going to start off with some Averland Sunset from Citadel, which is a nice thick base paint, which is going to be really good for doing the bases of this miniature. I've just thinned it down with just a little bit of water so we can get a nice even flow into all the little areas where we've got our little bits of stone and sand in there. Just a good tip for getting a nice even spread rather than what you can see here on this other side. With just a little bit of water, we can make the job a lot easier between these two different sides that I've shown you here with. So just cover up the whole base to give a nice good coverage on there. Okay, so once we've got the base all nice and covered, we're going to come in now with some demonic yellow. I'm going to be using demonic yellow to be placing some sort of splotches and like a dry brushing motion, and just dry brushing in random spots. I'm not dry brushing over the entire area, just bits here and there, because we want a little variation here in our desert environment. We don't want to have just one plain form of yellow and then dry brushing over with a different yellow and so on, with different yellows, just making it all very uniform. The desert and sort of desert-like environments are very varied in colors and tones, so we're going to be using quite a lot of different ones here. Okay, so now we'll be adding some khaki to the mix, which is another color that sand can often come in. So again, we're just doing the same thing, which is just dabbing it on with a dry brush. It's a little bit heavier and thicker than a dry brush, as you can see here, but eventually we're just thinning it out to a dry brush. Now I am actually going to be doing all the rocks in a big dry brush with khaki in here, just to make them stand out a little bit more from the ground, because I don't want the rocks to be the exact same color as the ground we have on here. We want a bit of separation in that. So just a good tip there. And remember, I'm always just making it all random all over the place. No real sort of way to doing this. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to move on again with some Averland Sunset. And what we're going to be doing this time is we're going to be using the Averland Sunset to be covering up this stone pillar that our giant cobra is on. A little bit hard to see on this side, but on the back there's like a ancient sort of sandstone, ancient Egyptian sort of style bit of rubble here they've got here, including some little urns and that as well. So it's a good neat little detail to have on this miniature here to make it pop out that little bit more, which gave me the inspiration actually for doing this sandy desert style base. So it looks like he's popped out from a tomb somewhere, and he's guarding this treasure with his life, sort of thing. So just giving it a nice good coverage here, and don't forget to get in all these gaps in the area where the snake is wrapping around as well. Okay, so once we have that pillar all done up, we're going to come in now with some vallejo ivory, and we're going to be using this in a very similar fashion to what we've been just using over the areas we have already, which is giving it basically an overbrush here with the ivory, paying a little bit harder attention to the rocks, because I want them to be sort of really hard beaten down with the sun, and when the rocks and stuff in the desert, they sort of whiten up a little bit. So that's why I'm focusing a lot more on the rocks rather than anything else, but remembering to just give them a nice good coverage, so we can still see the layers underneath. It looks like I'm going completely white over the camera, but once it dries, it'll tone itself back down and it'll look more natural. Okay, so now we have all that done. What we're going to be doing now is coming back in with our khaki, and we're going to be using khaki to just be giving a little coating here into this little skull. A little bit hard to see here. Hopefully the camera can focus in a little bit better, but it's just a little skull that our giant cobra is wrapping around. So we're just coming in here with the khaki, which is a really good bone color to come in there and pick out that little bit of detail. Okay, so once we've picked out that skull on the miniature, we're going to come in now with some seraphim sepia. I'm going to be using seraphim sepia to be washing over all the areas we've just painted. So that's everything from the ground to the rocks to the nice sandstone Egyptian style pillar, the skull, everything we're going to be giving it a nice big coat of the seraphim sepia. And what this is going to do is the wash is going to tie all the yellows and the khakis and the whites and stuff all together to make it look a little bit more cohesive as one piece, and it looks like it all comes from the same environment rather than having very different colors just slapped on there. So there's just a nice way to tie everything together. Okay, now that we have the wash all dry, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with some greedy gold. I'm going to be using greedy gold to be painting up the little urns that I showed you just before on the miniature, giving them a nice good coverage here, because I want them to be some really cool ancient Egyptian old style sort of urns. That's what I've based them on. It's just a very sort of generic sort of Egyptian style looking, because it's the way I feel they look, and I think it'll give a nice look and really go for the environment that we're trying to tell here in the story of this base. Okay, now that we have those urns all painted up in the gold, we're going to be coming now in with some void shield blue, and we're going to be using the void shield blue just around the outer area. You can see here on the face of the urn, because that's Egyptian style urns and iconography, and that has a lot of blue and golds in there, so I want to stick as true as I can to the theme we're going for here, which is making it a giant cobra protecting its treasure in a sort of ancient Egyptian desert. So I want to try and mimic the colors as closely as I can, and this blue is also just going to add a nice bit of pop of color when you're looking at this piece from different angles. Okay, now for that is all we've got for the basing at this moment. So now we're going to be moving back on with our Cobra, coming back in with some averland sunset, and we're going to be painting underneath the, I'm not sure what you call this, neck frill sort of display piece that the Cobra has on him here, and we're just going to be going down to pretty much halfway of this point of the coil that the Cobra's positioned in, really getting underneath all this neck area being splayed out, giving it a really good covering. And we'll want to go halfway down the point you can see here, making sure we get into all those nice crevices and stuff in there. It's got a lot of awesome detail with the scales on there, so don't forget to really go in there. And as you can see, I'm blocking out the camera while doing this as well. It's quite a hard angle to get, but just don't forget to get into all those areas as well while you're doing it. Okay, now I've gotten all that area covered up. What I'm going to be doing now is coming in with some khaki. So we're using a lot of the same colors here in this miniature, which is going to be just good to tie everything in together. You can see I nearly just dropped it there. Lucky enough I had it in my hand in a tight enough grip that I could catch it. But what we're going to be doing now is just doing a little dry brushing with this khaki to make those scales pop out a little bit more, because the averland sunset is way too sort of yellow colored for me. I want it to look like a natural Cobra, so that's why we're coming in with the khaki and just dry brushing over those scales. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is painting the rest of the Cobra, and we're going to be doing this in black. Now, I'm going to be covering the coil parts you can see here, and we're just going to be leaving everywhere alone to do with the underbelly and the neck frill area that we've already painted in the yellow and the khaki dry brush on top of that. And we're also going to be just avoiding a little bit on the back of the frill as well, because I want to put a nice design pattern on there. So just making sure you're getting in that really good coverage over all these scales. And it might take a little while because there is a lot of scales in here that the paint's going to get caught up in. So don't forget to thin down your paint so you can really get a smooth transition into those areas without wasting too much time. Okay, so now we have all the black on the Cobra painted up. What we're going to be doing now is I'm going to be coming in with some extra detail on this Cobra. Most Cobras have a really cool design on them. So I was looking at some pictures of Cobras online, and some of the king Cobras that I noticed have a stripe just across their belly like here, as you can see. And they also have some underneath their frill, which is to basically represent a face of a different creature. So when they're standing up like how they usually do, it looks like it's got this big scary face printed on their underbelly. So that's why they jump up like that, as you can see. And that's what I'm going to try and replicate here as close as I can. And you can see I'm trying to draw the eyes here, but me being me, I've got the not the camera, the base in the way of the camera, so you can't really see what I'm doing. But I'm just basically making an eye shape, as you can see there. I do end up by figuring out, hey, I'm blocking the camera, and flip it upside down so you can get a better look at what I'm doing here. So I'm just dabbing it on rather than painting it on, because all those scales underneath are catching all the paint, so that's why I'm dabbing, so you can get it into all the little grooves on the miniature. Okay, so now we've got that face and eyes painted on there. We're going to be coming in now with some ivory, and what we're going to be doing is doing the back of the miniature. Now you can see I didn't paint everywhere on the back of the miniature. I said to leave a little bit on the back because we wanted to do a design. I sort of left it in sort of the rough design that I wanted from the Cobra. Just again looking at pictures online, seeing that some of them also have this pattern here. And of course we don't want to forget about doing the what do you call them, the spikes on the side of the frill that it has here, because it's not exactly supposed to be a perfect replica of a Cobra. It's supposed to be this big giant sort of dire Cobra, I guess. So they add in a few extra embellishments on there, so we want to make sure we get those spikes in there as well. And just continuing with the dabbing motions so we can really get in between all those little scales there. Okay, so once the paint is dried on the back of our head design here, all I'm doing is I'm just coming back in with the black that we originally had for our body, and just putting in some dots here to make it look like eyes, because the Cobras have the very distinct patterns on them, especially the ones that I was looking at make it look like they've got eyes all over the place, so animals are deterred by them. So that's why I'm just picking out some designs that I've seen online that I liked. But again, it's all up to you whether you want to put stripes or something else on there like that. Okay, now we're done with all the designs on the Cobra. We're going to come in now with some demonic yellow. And what we're going to be doing with the demonic yellow is we're just going to be painting in the eyes here, as you can see, which we want that nice bright yellow to be in there. I want those eyes to really pop out on the miniature. Before it just has that base coat of the averland sunset from when we're painting the underneath of the belly, so it's already an optional step if you want to do this or not. I'm doing this because I really want these eyes to pop out really strongly. Okay, so once our yellow on the eyes is all dried up, what we're going to be doing now is just coming in with a very fine tip brush, getting some black paint, and we're just going to be drawing a nice and easy stripe down the center of the eyes, giving it that signature eye shape that we want for our Cobra. Now remember, if you do accidentally go a little too far with the black, just wait for it to dry and come back over with the yellow. Alright, so with that, our miniature is now complete. So it was a nice easy paint job that we had here, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting some more effort into that base. So I'm adding in some tufts, some flowers, some grass flocking of different colors. I've got some browns, I've got some greens here and that as well. So I'm not sure exactly for what the design I want to do yet to make it look realistic, but remember, it's all just up to you what you want to do here. And with all that complete, we have now finished painting up our giant Cobra from Reaper Miniatures. And as you can see, it was a nice, easy paint job to do here, especially just on the Cobra. A very, very simple paint job, which is why I thought I would step up and do a fancier base on this miniature to show you how to really set the scene in an environment on nice easy miniatures, which you can just make an awesome amount of pop on any miniature by just adding in an awesome base to something that's relatively simple like this snake was. So with that, I hope this has been useful for you, whether you want to follow along or you just enjoy watching me paint up some cool miniatures. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.